Hi there. Thank you so much again for joining me, Michael Doran, on the Meet My Network podcast. I'm extremely excited to be speaking with Mark Leone today. Is it Leon or Leon?
Leon, but
Leon?
been
Okay,
called
Mark
both
Leon.
throughout
Say
my
Mark's a little bit different than some of the other people that I've been having on this podcast. He is started in recruiting, but has really specialized and branched off more into recruiting marketing and enabling recruiting departments through their really strong messaging and communication over the course of his career. Looking forward to diving into it. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. How
Oh,
are
no,
you?
thank you. I'm fantastic. It's Friday, sun's out. It's beautiful. I have no
Absolutely. The question I always start with these, and I see that you started back in around my time of the I think the thing I love most about these podcasts, and I'm having consistently people on who've been recruiting 20, 25 years like me. So it's always nice to talk to some other old pros. I see you got started at Merrill Lynch in the mid 90s. So I'd love just to start with what drew you to recruiting in the first
well,
place.
I could say Pearl Jam, but that was just my first CD, but they certainly have had their influence on my life.
Sure.
It's a peculiar start. I was going through my senior year of undergraduate studies at Rutgers, and I was a resident advisor. And my supervisor was in the Human Resource Industrial Labor Relations program at Rutgers, which was an emerging program. I didn't even know what human resources was. So he introduced me to several individuals and administrators and a mentor of mine by the name of Richard Beatty, who has, I believe, published over a dozen books on that subject to really
Mhm.
talked me into the opportunity. And I just took my GREs 3 weeks before graduation and applied, and I got into the program. I mean, I think at the end of the day is I just wasn't ready to be an adult. And in 2 years, I interned with Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, and Comcast Cable. I was president of our SHRM chapter. We presented to the Central Jersey Professional chapter. We did a partnership program with Columbia University, and I really just dove right in to the space because I just love the opportunity of connecting, nurturing, growing, training, advising individuals to give them the best opportunities for success in their roles.
And so you continued on in recruiting at one point. I'd love to get to the point because you're so different than so many of the people I talk with. I'd love to get to the point where you started to identify that specifically marketing around talent acquisition and marketing around the recruitment function was something that was being developed and that was going to be a need for the future.
So, like many of us in your audience, life happens and many changes aren't necessarily professionally driven. Some of them are personally driven. And I was in the HR management and consultation space until about 2002 when my mom passed away. At that point, I dropped out of everything. And it took about 2 years for me to really feel comfortable enough to want to work again in any capacity. And I did that in
Mm.
serving, where I just found a community that was so accepting and so inclusive. I was at 29, 30 at the time. I was much older than most of the people I served with, but they welcomed me in a way that to this day, haven't found anything like that again. It was a community that was of just alternative lifestyles, alternative relationships. Nobody judged anyone. No one got upset at anyone. It was just a really amazing, almost bohemian community. And I started studying my surroundings and studying the people I wanted to be and the person I was. And that's when I was awoken to the idea of every individual is made up of a complexity of layers. And so many of us judge people by the way they look, their age, the color of their skin. We don't even really get to know them. And I started to really get to know and understand people and their differences. And it was an awakening. So shortly after that, I got back into the corporate workforce and I started seeing the evolution of social media. LinkedIn was coming to its own in 2007, I believe. Facebook was open to the masses and Pinterest and Twitter. And it just became this digital connection world, which nobody knew what to expect from it. And it took a few years before it became the obsessiveness it is today. And I started looking and realizing that each platform had its own intended audience. And I said, oh, huh, that's interesting. It's based around the idea of community. And I also started seeing that there was a war for talent. We weren't necessarily given talent based on what our brand name was, what our company name was, what logo. was showing up on a website. And so I pitched the idea of what today is now a recruitment marketing manager, the idea of the creative side of soliciting and nurturing and building new talent, whether that's through talent pools, whether that's through creative campaigning, paid and organic. And it took a few months, but I was at Aon Consulting at the time and they bought into the idea and said, okay, it's your job now. And so I started doing that. And the very first thing was our Aon Career Experience blog. And it's so weird saying blog now because it's such an archaic term and it's only been about 12 years. So, but it still feels like an OG term. So over the course of the next couple of years, I interviewed 40 plus individuals in, I want to say 14 countries around the world. And these were individuals that were connecting to their community, but also doing some phenomenal work in their professional lives. And it was fantastic. It was just amazing. And I loved it. My favorite story was a woman in Vancouver that coached soccer with her children and the team that she coached. And she just loved talking about it so much. And that was, I love that conversation. To this day, I still remember that conversation. And that was that. And so after that, I was just all in. In 2019, I did a consulting gig with Warner Media, and that was one of the biggest challenges I faced. And my challenge was, people know us by our name. They know Warner Brothers, they know Discovery, they know Warner Gaming, they know HBO, they know Cartoon Network, but no one knows the brand, the umbrella of Warner Media. We want you to build a talent community and build a framework for a newsletter that encompasses everything into one channel. So, okay. And in 3 months, we went from 27 people in our talent community to 17,800.
That's incredible.
Totally
How?
innovative approach. So what I did was I looked at the top schools for screenwriting, journalism, production, direction, filmmaking. But I also looked at the top schools where we had offices around the world in England and Barcelona. And I created a template to invite people to the talent community. And I placed the template as a job slot on LinkedIn and rotated them every 48 hours for 3 months because no one said it had to be a singular job. And of course, I'm waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under me and LinkedIn saying, yeah, no, we're not gonna let you do that. And they didn't. And I built out 12 templates to focus on different themes and different flows of information with the ultimate core goal of talent. What was the biggest surprise of that whole initiative was I became the face of Warner Media on LinkedIn. I had aspiring screenwriters, aspiring directors, including a young woman, 23-year-old from Romania, who was working with Quentin Tarantino. In the background of our video call, she had 8 guitars against the wall. She was a musician, she was a director, she was a screenwriter, and just a dreamer. I said to myself, I actually felt inferior listening to some of these young women talk and these young men talk. There was one woman, she was in gaming program, designing and developing the coding for video games. And she was openly transgender and she feared that she couldn't break into that space because of her orientation and because of the differences and how people would perceive her. And she talked to me and asked for my advice on our call that she didn't want a job. She said, she just reached out to me and said, can I just talk to you about some of the challenges I'm facing and some of the obstacles I have to overcome? And I said, of course. And it became much deeper than just a job at that point, even though it was just a very short consultative 3-month assignment that I was doing as a favor. It became a humanity in itself.
Almost a calling.
Yeah, in a way. And since then, I feel like every 6 months or every year, I just take a deeper look at everything around us and say, what needs to change? What needs to evolve? And I think that's the difference between aspiring, passionate individuals and just people that want a paycheck. One is doing it to just maintain a consistency in their life, a comfort level in their life. The other is doing it to continuously change and leave a legacy behind.
Is your inner guide giving you any direction around that now? Because I've been saying in a lot of public formats, I feel like we're in a frothy period right now. It's almost like if you're in the ocean, you get hit by a big wave, right? And you're in the washing machine, right? And there's bubbles all around you and you don't know what is up and what is down. I feel that's many recruiters in the economy today. Like everyone's waiting the economy to come back and it's not quite coming back yet. And so what advice I think would you have for someone who's maybe a little bit more experienced and who feels that need to keep evolving and changing? Because you've done it, you clearly done it so well and so early in your career, and it sent you in a completely unique direction that I think sounds like it's been extremely rewarding for you. And I think that's what we're all looking for in our work, right?
My inner guide hates me. So that's a key factor here. That's absolutely critical. Um, Before it was trendy, I have openly suffered from depression, anxiety. It's just
Mm.
who I am. When it hits me, my symptoms are very common. I get heart palpitations, I get a tightness in my stomach, and a sense of claustrophobia. I'm fortunate enough to live 7 miles from the beach. So I could go to Folly Beach, and that decompresses me and gives me a sense of balance. But it hits me at any time. It doesn't have to be in a crowd. It doesn't have to be in the middle of a meeting. I can just have a quiet moment of reflection and it just hits me. So the need to balance the pressures of existence and the pressures of responsibility is very important to me. And to my small circle of friends, they understand me that when I disappear for a day or two, there's a reason for it. Nothing bad's happened. But I think the key is it's hard to answer the question because I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate financially.
Mm.
I mean, my first job, I was 13, made $15 an hour or $15 for the day, a bagel and a hot chocolate, helping my dad's friend at a flea market at 5 a.m. So I've known not to work, but I've also had a keen eye for investments and the stock market and really studied that. And I've been fortunate. So I have opportunities where I don't necessarily need to work for money. I have opportunities to continue to follow the passion. And so I say to you, if you're passionate about it and you're committed to it, you should do it. Of course, I'm going to say that. But I'm also going to say that everything in life, including personal passions, it's work. And I'm going to actually take that a step further and just talk about something that I started 10 years ago that is relevant to this question. So 10 years ago, as we know, I have a marketing and a strategy and an advertising background, and I have a writing background. I guess I didn't mention that, but I've written a number of books. And so I started a digital publication in Charleston because I love where I live. I love this community. I love
It's
like,
a beautiful
oh
area of the
my goodness,
country.
there's not even words. I can't even capture with my photography
Mm.
passion what I want to capture. And the whole mission was number one, support nonprofits, charities, and small businesses. Number two, only promote a culture of positivity and goodness. You don't have to agree with me on everything, but just respect others within the ecosystem and and just treat each other with the same fairness you would expect back to you. So because of that, we don't do sensationalism. We don't do journalism. We don't do politics at all. Untouchable. If there's any negative content that's shared among our viewers, our readers, our users, whatever term you use, we remove them. It's very
Mm.
clear that our mission is to create an environment of positivity and kindness. And to start a publication and say, okay, that's your mission. How do you grow that? Because people are triggered by memes, sensationalism, violence, crashing. I mean, we know what our trigger points are. We know we're
Anger is the
right.
ultimate
So to
engagement
say no
metric now, right?
politics, people are gonna be like, how are you gonna grow? In 10 years, we're 400,000 followers. We do about 120 to
Wow.
130,000 unique views a month on our website. And we only put 45 pieces of content a month. So compared to a daily that does about 150 to 200 pieces a day, our engagement level is phenomenal. We do almost 1,300 views per article. So that to me is a great success because I'm a dreamer. I mean, I believe in the humanity. I'm the person that gravitates to the Jim Hensons and the Steve Jobs of the world, the people that ha- are looking for a greater meaning in everything. And that's my constant striving. That's the thing that keeps me going. And it bleeds into my professional career because I'm always looking at what other companies aren't doing well, even if they're small little tweaks or adjustments, and how do we do it better? And as we move into more AI automation based technology, do I resist it? No, I support it. I'm all in favor of it. But I will always, if we have this conversation 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, I'm sitting on a rocking chair, having my hot tea. I'm still going to say I'm always going to believe in the human element of recruitment and sourcing.
Mm.
It's a human connection. You could process a million. In fact, I process a million applications a month for Walmart. I don't personally, but I play a role in a million applications a month. But to me, it's still the human side of it because I see 16-year-olds that are just lost, looking for just some direction, some home, some meaning. And even to find one person like that a job leaves a lasting impact on me versus the other 999,999 that are just part of a system.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's what has kept me with recruiting, right? I had a weird pathway into it. I was a college dropout who was able to get out of working retail by working collections.
It sounds like the worst,
And I
worst
was afraid to talk to
opportunity.
people on the phone. Oh, I mean, the worst job ever, but I was afraid to talk to people on the phone, and I knew, like, I might as well immerse myself in it, and literally, I was working for a finance company in Chicago where the CFO, a few years after I worked there, shot himself in the freeway one day because who knows what was going there, right? And I was talking to people who had got suckered into buying Kirby vacuum cleaners, and they financed it for 40% interest. So you can imagine what the infamous story in my family is. One day I was working here in my office and I see all this movement coming back and forth my window. And I walk into the house and my wife is looking terrified and my kids are sitting there and there's a Kirby vacuum cleaner salesman. And he's starting to take out, and I look and he's got this big box that's got 100 different parts in it, and they each have their own plastic holder. And I walk in and I'm like, hey, do you know what my first job was? The guy looks at me, I'm like, I collected money from people who got suckered by Kirby vacuum cleaner salespeople. And the guy just looks up with fear and I'm like, you can leave now, sir. I thank you for your time. But it was really hard for me to get into it. I was able to work my way up to customer success or service at the time. And then I got an opportunity I went to a job fair. They used to have these things called job fairs where you go with a whole bunch of resumes and you could actually get a job at the job fair. And I talked to a recruiting company and the guy liked my voice, asked if I ever thought about being a recruiter. I'm like, it's got to be better than customer service. I took a $10,000 a year pay cut. My whole family told me that I was crazy to do it, but I just fell in love with it because for me, recruiting is a service position, right? Like I'm serving people and allowing them to get better jobs, to be able to provide for themselves. I'm serving companies by helping them find the right talent that they need to meet their business objectives. And it's just a win-win. And unlike salespeople, when I'm really successful, you're not going to like double or triple my quota for the next quarter generally, right? So we make 20 to 30% less than salespeople, but we have about 40 to 50% less stress than salespeople. And so to me, that's a good handoff. And I love the fact that so much of what you've done has been really centered and focusing on helping other people and help people develop. And I'm sure that you've had a big impact in doing that at Walmart where you're working fractionally now. I'd love to get into how were you able to get up to a million monthly hourly applicants for the first time in company history? I mean, what approach did you take when you set out to help them with that? Because I'm sure that they've got constant sort staffing needs because they've got so many locations across the country and across the world.
7 years ago, I don't know the details, but there was a rift between Walmart and Indeed. And because of that rift, Walmart, the number one employer in the United States, was not on the number one job board in the United States. So the only way to get jobs onto Indeed was to manually post them. So 4,600 stores, each store manager or people lead was responsible for posting their own either manual, easy apply jobs or paid sponsor jobs or Indeed hosted events. So that was the first challenge I had to come to grips with. The second part was we had no reporting. We couldn't pinpoint what stores truly had needs other than just guessing or a manager calling us. Number three, I was the first recruitment marketing manager for Walmart US stores. So my existence was nothing to anyone. I wasn't on anyone's radar. So that's what I walked into. So step one, I need reporting. And so I worked with our product team to develop what we call a talent crunch report. It's a weekly report based on 12 categories. And we look at attrition rates, number of minors, number of hires per month, population, who our competitors are. And based on that, there is a designed algorithm that factors all of those 12 categories and gives them a critical mass score. So every week we have rank 1 to 4,602. And that's our top stores that need critical attention. So getting that, which was about a little over 2.5 years, that was the first step in beginning the evolution to getting to where we were. Now, at the point when all of this started over a period of the last 24 months, we went from 380 to 410,000 monthly applicants to last month, we did 1.1 million. And we didn't spend any additional money. In fact, we reduced spend. So now that we had the reporting, the next step was you have to be on Indeed. And so I created a series of templates that simplified the process. In fact, I have to take a step back. I don't want to say career site because it's not career site. Our solution for stores is what's known as career preference. It's a tool that allows you to apply to multiple positions and multiple stores at the same time. It does have a built-in assessment depending on the skill set of the role. And the process itself takes 27 minutes. So part of the reason there was no integration with Indeed is it's just not a traditional ATS. So you couldn't send someone from an Indeed job at a specific location to that exact job and career preference at that location. So that had to be built out, and we wouldn't dedicate the dollars, or we couldn't come to a mutual agreement with the product team and Indeed for many number of reasons. We've now done that. So July 29th, we launched a full integration with LinkedIn and Indeed, where it's a job for job match. That was huge. Now, what happened 2.5 years ago to that point of integration? I posted manually. Up until the first 6 months, I could only send 20 emails at a time with the template that I had built out, that it gave step-by-step instructions, gave really some selling points, like what are the drivers of a career versus a job? And of course, the value proposition, who we are and why you want to be part of Walmart. They lifted that after 6 months to unlimited. So I went from posting 25 jobs on my own to 1,100.
Surely that was automated then at some
Well,
point. You weren't doing
I only had to
1,100
do the email outreach about 3 times a day. So all these jobs are posted,
Got it.
select all, set. Before I could only do 20 at a time. So it would take me 45 minutes to do one job and 400 applicants. So that was a big step of success. And what was so interesting was that 27-minute process was very confusing to people. Whether you were 16 or 80, it was not a user intuitive process. So by providing step-by-step guidance and instructions, we had a tremendous impact on conversion success. At that point, our overall conversion, paid, organic, all sources, was 8.63%. My conversion rate was 17. So I was doing 2.25 times more completed applications than they were. And I was only focusing on stores that had true needs. So that was that. So once we got the integration done, I was able to then start looking at really strategic, geo-targeted regional support. And that's when I was able to really say, do this and this. And then, of course, the final step was job titles. I looked at all of our job titles. We had 78 of them. In fact, I think we only used maybe 60% of those. They were just archived and existed. And I said, So I used Indeed research, Google Trends, and 3 AI algorithms to determine what the most optimized job titles were to give the proper understanding of what the job is without reading the job description and get the most visibility. We piloted 15 jobs. Every single one except for one had a 22 to 28% increase in lead generation. And the best example I can give you was we have a job title, Asset Protection Specialist. Only 2 companies in America use the title Asset Protection Specialist, Walmart and Target. It's a loss prevention specialist. And so we changed that. That was a huge impact. We actually had less people apply, but we had a higher conversion rate because people knew what it was. And the second one was online shopping associate. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people reached out to me on Indeed and said, "Can I work from home?" I said, "No, you're a personal shopper." So once we changed to personal shopper, changed everything. So those are really the key trigger points of success that led to that real overarching leadership success of cost savings and increased applicant flow. And of course, my goal has always been increased quality. In fact, the driving
Wow.
measure that I have been basing everything on is a category that we have, which is how many qualified applicants per current open. So my goal is 5. And we went from 983 stores that had under 5 down to 120 in 8 months. Because we were targeting the exact
Wow.
stores that needed help, not just doing an overarching national strategy.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. A lot of very similar to what I hear about people building products. And just to summarize a little bit, so you started by getting a first baseline and what the data was and what the data that you needed was. You then started building manual processes to figure out which
So,
channels
yes.
and which approaches work the best. And then once you had that database down and you had those manual, then you started looking for areas that you could then start to automate, can start to escalate and start to really branch out from there. And so, what period of time would you say from when you first started gathering data and getting the bedrock until you had the machine up and running, humming? How much time was in between there?
You're my publicist. You summarized that perfectly. I feel like we need to talk offline about that.
That's one of my strengths as a recruiter. I will always tell people what they said back to them, and they'd be like, "You said that better than I did." I'm like, "Feel free to steal it. It's just my brain. It's the way it synthesizes data." But I build technology, but I didn't start doing it till later in life. And I think that another reason I'm trying to do with these podcasts and with this community is to tell recruiters, like, you've got so many skills that are transferable. And we've been kicked down and looked down upon, and we don't have the best reputation in this industry. And I'm out here trying to reset that. I feel that I've been saying in some other podcasts that'll be coming out, I feel that the CEOs of the future should come out of recruiting. Like, we're the salespeople in HR. We've been raised in the compliant environment. We are in the guts of a company. We know every single hiring manager. We know every single position. We know how they all work with each other. We should know what the strategic goals of the company are. And we're the ones who are inside the companies building them up. Whereas traditionally, leadership has come from sales or finance, sometimes operations, depending upon the company, and then out in Silicon Valley, engineering. And I feel that the best CEOs, I think, should come out of recruiting in the
Good
future.
question. 3
Yeah.
years.
3 years?
This has been over 3 years.
And so what time did you spend really gathering the data and building the manual process? Was that about a year then?
The first 6 months I describe as the Harry Truman presidential campaign. I was on the back of the train going from New York to California, stopping in every small town, telling people who I was, that I existed. And until I developed those confidants, there are regional managers, people managers, store managers that I have on speed dial now, that if I have even the basic question about understanding something within the giant thousands and thousands of microsites of protocol at Walmart, they're there for me.
So you were actually literally physically traveling around meeting.
No, I was
Oh,
calling
just okay. So just virtually then.
just virtually.
Really
And
start building that network internally and finding as many different people that you could work with and explain who you are and what you're doing and what effect you can bring to their business.
correct. And then just some of the initiatives, the manual postings I just start doing on my own when I
Sure.
have that reporting. But now the next step is I've already thought about the next phase. That's the strange part. I'm not done with this, but I've already thought what's next. And what's next is three things. Number one, an actual talent community. We don't have one for stores. It was always shunned upon. I was told we'll get 1 million people in the first day. I said, no, you won't.
Right.
Let's just dismiss the obvious.
I'm trying to build a community. Let me tell you, you start slow.
Right. But again, sitting on the laurels of this is Walmart. Everyone wants to be part of Walmart. Let's not go there yet. Let's see what happens and build out the templates, build out an understanding. And so number two is how do we have that consistent messaging about investment in our associates, opportunity through training and development? 75% of all of our salary positions at Walmart stores started hourly. 75%. We have people that have been there 40, 50, 55, 60 years. And we've never really gotten that message across effectively. And the third part is we want to celebrate those inspirational forces. So this is a great story. So in Walmart's world and any Fortune 100's world, if you pitch anything that involves money, it takes weeks, months before anyone will even give you the time of day. And usually it's, let's talk about the next budget cycle. It generally has the same outcome. So I watched a video of a high school in Oklahoma, and they got students who were just inspired. I mean, career, life-driven inspiration by these teachers. And they did these testimonial videos. And these teachers were called in without knowing why. It was more of a ruse. Let's just talk about your work. And they were showing these videos. And then the great reveal was the students would come out and they captured this emotional moment. And I said, I want to do that. And I want to start with Jane Marshall. Jane Marshall retired in July of 2023 after 40 years. She was the first female store manager in the history of Walmart. She was a pistol, like no holds barred, no filter, but she will take care of you till the end of time if she believes. I mean, she was just hard knocks, very protocol, very process driven. But if she had to go cut a corner, she would do it because it was the right thing to do. She was just that kind of human. And it got approved in one day for $100,000.
Wow.
So how the hell would we do that? So I reached out to our production company. We'd worked for about 8 years. And I said, this is my vision. I wanted to take every corporate video protocol and throw it out. This is not a corporate video. I want to capture that real moment. And I want people to know just how important our leaders are and what impact they make on everyone's life. Because the key was a small population can be very loud. And when you look at populations like Reddit, Walmart gets slammed every day. I mean, for
Yeah.
nonsense. But it's just a small, loud group of individuals. But the perception of what they're saying has gravitational pull. So this is one way to offset that. And leadership subordinate relationships at the store level has always been under attack because people talk about Walmart as if it's a high school environment. There's dating that's going on. There's people talking behind each other's back. There's rumors. I'm like, that's just life, people.
It's any big,
Go to
it's
next
any big
door.
corporation. It's any big corporate. I saw that stuff at
Go
Google.
to a cul-de-sac.
Right.
So what happened was the projects at the time, my supervisor saw like a large scale. We could expand this. We could work with corporate comms and we could do a video series that could really change. And we had never done anything like this ever. So I got pulled from it. 3 months go by of just all kinds of just back and forth, what to do. So I finally just took it back over. And I reached out to several key individuals that helped me identify who should be involved in the testimonials. Are they well? So I got all these people on calls. I talked to them, pitched the idea. They were all in. I got disclaimer and consent form signed off, and I got the project back on schedule. And then I was just given the project lead. It's like, just finish this out. And we're about a week away from the first one being in post-production and being ready to launch. And we are doing a company-wide release of this first video because it is, I mean, I've already seen some of the raw footage. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Really
It
just telling the story behind the people at Walmart.
it is because with our first video, we had testimonials from a gentleman in his early 30s to a woman in her 60s
Mm.
at all different career moments that were defined by this one leader. One told me a story that is going to carry with me forever. Is there was a vagrant family outside of a Walmart store in Missouri, and it was a family, husband, wife, 2 children, and a dog. And the associates didn't know what to do, so Jane went out there with food and dog food, and just sat with them. And nobody knows what she said. And they left shortly after that. But the theme around that story was she treated them as if they were humans,
Sure.
that they weren't a homeless family trying to get out of the cold. They were just not in a place that most people wanted them welcome, but they were still needed to be treated with the same level of respect. And she did. And that's just the person she was. And these are the kind of stories that came out of this. And in fact, even when the reveal happened and they were off camera, she even told one of the young ladies that was part of the project, "Yeah, you're not there yet." So I mean, everyone else like doing a phenomenal job, but she was still being her. She was still being that leader that said, "You'll get there, but there are some things in your leadership style that still need some help." And to me, that's a huge compliment. Like he could have flaked over and said, "I can't believe y'all did this for me. You're all amazing. You're all wonderful." But she told one that you're just not there yet. And that's respect with a capital R.
Absolutely. Before this conversation, we were talking, we have both worked at Aon Hewitt. And then there's a gentleman there named Artel Smith. He's the CHRO. I came into a project. I really impressed him. I was hoping to maybe go full time at Aon Hewitt, and he did something so much more valuable. He brought me into a room. He did some type of executive, some type of executive exercise with me where he had me break myself down in all these different areas, and he's putting these quadrants up on the board. And he helped me realize like I was getting defensive to feedback. And my defensiveness to feedback was holding me back. And no one had ever really just brought it out and put it in front of me and said, Michael, this is it. This is what's holding you back. And the funny thing was 2 years later, when I was working at Google, I got pulled into a meeting one day and they're like, we just want to let you know we're so happy with how open to feedback you are. Like when we tell you to do something, like you do it, like you shift gears. And that's exactly what we need in people who are working. And in that moment, I could just say, thank you, Artel, right? Because that leader had taken a moment, 45 minutes out of his day to sit down with me and help me get where I needed to be. And shout out to Walmart as well. I heard I think it was the Journal podcast about them recently. They did a whole expose about store managers at Walmart making $300,000 a year, having huge impacts on their communities. A good majority of them come from having worked in the store themselves and worked up. And it seems like it's a very good kind of way to work yourself out of maybe not the best place into a really solid career. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be doing more to kind of get the good word out about the good things that happen at Walmart, not necessarily just all the bad stuff that you hear out in the
I
world.
want to step back to 14 minutes ago. I'm just,
Okay.
I don't know
Sure.
what's out. And you asked what advice
Yeah.
about driving yourself towards where you need to be. And I think I kind of want to just almost modify my answer. The advice I would give is whether you do it once a year, once every 5 years, nightly, it doesn't matter. Look back at your career and look at those catalysts of change, those individual moments, those individual periods of time that shapes who you would become, whether it
Yeah.
altered you to a different path or continue to spear you in the direction you were going. And when I do that, there's several things that really just immediately hit. Number one, when I was an intern at Goldman Sachs, it was 1996. I think like $38 an hour. That was like gold.
Yeah.
And I was in the compensation team. And during compensation review, we worked till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we had a town car. If you worked anywhere in the tri-state area, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, you got driven home.
Wow.
And I'm like, God,
I made it. I made it, baby. Yeah.
The guy 3 times my age is driving me home all the way back to Jersey. What's going on here? This is crazy. But the first time I went to the 87th floor, I handed this giant white folder to John Corzine, who at the time was CEO, later became the governor of New Jersey. I learned about humbleness, and I learned what true respectful leadership was. I mean, I was in awe of just being in the presence of him. Well, and the giant mahogany table and the
Sure.
25 TVs with stock markets from around the world. But that was my first thing. When I was at IBM, I tell you this, to my retired day, I learned my stylistic way of doing project management because of the way I was trained and the responsibilities that were given of me.
Mm.
So to create individual tasks, to create goals and milestones, whether you achieve them or not, you have to continue to strive towards something. So whether a project is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, a month implementation, I always continue to develop individual task milestones to achieve. And if I didn't get it, I made sure the next one got there. And I learned that at IBM, and that has been the greatest thing I've carried with me over the last 5, 6 years, and why I don't need a supervisor. I am self-reliant
Yeah.
in everything I do. So I think it's important to just find those triggers that, whether you realize it or not, because your subconscious is such a powerful tool, it helped you become that person.
Oh, that's
And
really interesting. Yeah, that's really powerful, I think, and being open to what you're being exposed to. Might not be exposed to the high flying or all the best stuff, but there's still opportunities there. There's opportunities to learn, there's opportunities to grow, and you never know. I mean, when I was at Granger one time, they hired me as a sourcer. That's not what they told me I was gonna be doing. It's not what they told me the first day I was gonna be doing. I didn't really like doing it, but I went out and did it, and sure enough, they ended up getting rid of one of the full-time recruiters, and I stepped up into that person and then was involved in a big project that came in under time and under budget, and we rocked it, and I met my recruiting mentor from it, right? And at the beginning of that project, I was out interviewing at other companies because I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could, and it ended up being a transformative part of my career. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, at the very least, we're now in the age of AI. Uh, how is it impacting you, and what are your thoughts about AI in terms of recruiting? Are you in favor? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? I'd love just to get to your perspective before we wrap this up.
there's a lot of subjective buzz, but it's still very infantile in what it has the capability of doing. The best quote I ever heard about AI was Robert Zemeckis. He was on Mark Maron's podcast, WTF. And Mark said, so your new movie here has AI right at the beginning with the dinosaurs. What do you think about it? He said, film, like anything else, is about continuous change.
Mhm.
You adopt it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You don't lose your traditional values. But if you just refuse to embrace it, you're going to lose.
Mm.
And that made all the sense in the world. So as a tool for developing templates, developing job descriptions, developing title adjustments, it's a phenomenally effective tool. Is it going to remove jobs? Absolutely. Is it going to create new jobs? Absolutely. The question is to yourself is, look at where the trends are. Stay alert. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just sit back and say, I'll just wait till the day where I lose my job because some AI chatbot is going to take it over. That's not the way it works. But if you refuse to continuously learn the new technology, you're going to lose. I mean, I remember at Comcast Cable, we kept our resumes in a manila folder, and all of our job openings was a tape recorder answering machine that I did once a week. And if I screwed up, had to start over again. So that's 1997. So I think we know where we are today. No, I think it's necessary because the volume of applicants will only grow as
Yeah.
the world population continues to grow. So the need to efficiently parse through that top of funnel is absolutely critical. And I embrace when it gets better and better.
It's so funny. I spent 20 months at Snap-on Tools in Wisconsin once in the HR supply closet. My computer was the computer that they used to take the pictures for the employee badges. Whenever someone lost a badge, I'd have to go walk around while they used my computer to take a badge. And my ATS was one of those metal stacks with manila folders. And I just think about like how efficient I was then, even to where I am now, and just what I've seen across my career. It's been transformational. It's just been night and day. But I agree with you. Okay, I think we probably need to do this again in 6 months. You and I could talk
Love to.
for hours about different topics. I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective, sharing a little bit about your journey to where you've gotten today, and the importance in marketing and recruiting. I really do think that recruiters really need to start thinking about more than just filling roles, but how they're marketing the companies, how they're marketing themselves. And I just thank you for being on the Meet My Network podcast. Thank you so much.
No, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.